You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to That Tracks, the podcast where we track that,
Let's say we track, hopefully, no more hurricanes.
right? It has been, and no pun intended, a whirlwind
A
of a week.
true whirlwind. Like my brain is on a swivel.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm tired. Okay, I will admit, I just woke up. We're recording this on Sunday, so for those that listen to this the day the episode drops, we're recording this yesterday. And
Yeah.
I just had a solid like Sunday afternoon nap. I'm on the struggle bus. I now have a little bit of a cold post like hurricane exhaustion, and it's been a week. We'll get into it, but let me
Yeah.
tell you.
I don't know why, but I stacked this weekend full of stuff,
Hmm.
and it's catching up to me.
Yeah, we were supposed to go do things. We were supposed to be at Brick or Treat yesterday at Legoland, but we ended up canceling just because of the hurricane. They were ready. They're functioning as normal, but
Yeah.
it was just too much. Yeah, it's been a week. We'll get into it. So last time that we talked, we I was in Michigan and
Oh,
we
yeah.
were
I forgot about all this.
yeah, we
Woo!
we were preparing for a hurricane. We were preparing for Milton, and we could tell that the storm was going to look rough. And we were talking about like what our options were, like whether we were going to leave or stay, and how it was going to potentially affect me, how it was going to potentially affect you, all of those things. And little did we know, like
Yeah.
all that was ahead of us. Um, you go ahead and get into your week from that time. So Saturday night, we were on the fence about like what this storm was actually going to look like for the state of Florida. And then
Right.
obviously as time went on, we got a clearer picture of how it was going to affect us.
I was fairly certain that it was going to hit and come across Orlando, but the eye of the hurricane hit pretty much like Bradenton, which is where, like, if you guys know me, you know that we visit Anna Maria. Anna Maria is, this is their second hit in 2 weeks from a hurricane. So they're not doing good. There was a restaurant there called Rod and Rail Pier. It's gone,
Mm,
just completely gone, washed out to the ocean
so
because it
sad.
was on the end of a dock and like the dock is gone. Um, so like they're not doing good. And then the hurricane continued across the state, and from Nick's house to my house, we were on the same path.
Yeah, it basically went up
So
I-4.
yeah, basically went up I-4,
Yeah.
and the eye was below I-4, but
Yeah.
anybody that knows a hurricane, the worst weather is just to the north. I think it's northeast of the
Uh-huh.
eye, and that was us, like
Us.
Nick,
Yeah.
then me.
Yeah.
Um, I was very fortunate. Like nothing. We got nothing. The power went out. I think like we have a battery backup in the garage, so it's hard to notice when the power goes out. We were trying to keep the kids as calm as possible through all of this. So we were lucky that around 4 o'clock, uh, we got like four tornado warnings in a row. Bam, 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 bam. And Jackson does not like tornadoes.
Yeah.
They showed him a video about hurricanes and tornadoes, and he was fine with the hurricane at school. He was fine with the hurricane thing, but then the tornado thing, deathly afraid of tornadoes now. And so he was a little bit like, what's going on? And so I had to pull out the radar and be like, all right, here's where we're at. If you look at the red, you can start to see the swirl of the tornado.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the tornado is over here from us, like, and it's going to head this way. So we are safe. We're about
Safe.
10 miles away from the tornado, maybe five. Um, but it's far enough away and it's a localized weather event that we don't have to worry about it. And that was four different cells did that same thing. They were all sort of near us, but the trajectories were just like if this was my house, one was here, one went this way, another one went this way, and it was just like four of them were all around us, but they missed us. We were totally fine.
That's good.
Um, and we have a tornado plan and everything, so we didn't have to worry about that. And then after that band of tornadoes came through, band of tornadoes,
Mm.
it's a pretty good band name. Um, uh, the tornado stopped. It
Yeah.
was just hurricane at that point. And for whatever reason, I don't know what was going on. It was just like we were in the luckiest spot in the world. As I was watching the eye roll up I-4, you could see this huge patch of red up above it. And then this, like, sometimes the eye wall will fall apart and reform. And
Hmm.
it just so happened that right as I was passing our house, it fell apart and then reformed just past us.
Wow, that's wild.
So, yeah, it was very windy, but
Yeah,
not as windy as it was other places. So
yeah,
we did not have any damage whatsoever in my house, in my neighborhood. There weren't any trees down. Nothing happened around me. Our power stayed on. We believe it was on. We went to sleep. So that was one thing that worked out really good for us is we put the kids to sleep at their normal time and they totally didn't even know that anything happened.
yeah.
And then Jen
That's
and I
awesome.
stayed up for, until like probably like midnight or 1 o'clock. And then we finally fell asleep. And then in the morning I woke up and I was like, it was it was done. Like it was still kind of like a little bit raining outside, but it was done enough that once the kids got up and everybody got up, we went for a walk around the neighborhood. We did get rained on during the walk, but we went for a walk. It was just like a little bit breezy out. We are just kind of like assessing the damage around the neighborhood. Nothing in our neighborhood. My parents were good. My brother was good. My sister was good.
That's
Everybody
good.
was good. I still have to talk to my sister because she has a house that went through the eye.
Oh wow.
But she was up staying here with my parents, so um, but like my brother's had his street blocked off by two trees that fell. My parents didn't have any trees that fell, but they were out without power for like 10 hours, I think. But they
Hmm.
have a big generator, so that didn't matter. My brother, his house flickered for like a second and then came back on. He didn't lose power. So we were like, best case scenario happened to us. And I'm
That's
glad
good.
for it. I'm thankful for it. And I know that a lot of other people didn't have the same situation.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny because one of the things that we did this weekend was we went to swim lessons, and it's a few towns over. And at swim lessons from Helene, a tree had fallen over in the parking lot, and then from Martin, right? What was it called?
Milton.
Milton. I couldn't even remember. Milton, another tree fell over the other direction. So
Oh my
now we're
goodness.
like missing like 10 parking spots in the swim
Oh my
lesson
gosh.
lot. It's just filled with trees.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a wild time.
Yeah, for sure. I wondered how it was going for you guys with the like, I think you have to prep your house and you have to prep so many things, but as a parent, you also have to like prep your kids
Yeah,
too,
it was
you
so
know?
funny. Like Channel 2 put out this great video. If you don't follow a meteorologist, Eric Burris, he's fantastic to follow. He's a really good meteorologist around town. And he put together a video that was like for kids. He had kids send in questions that they had about hurricanes
That's so
and they
cool.
answered them. And it was a good thing, but we tried to show it to Jackson. He's like, "No, I'm watching playing Monopoly." Because we busted into the board games early on
He's,
Wednesday.
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, Luke is like Jackson in terms of like the fear of storms, but Luke's is all encompassing. So it's not just tornadoes. Luke is also afraid of hurricanes. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think Luke like was very aware of what Hurricane Michael did in 2018. He was only 2 years old, but he knew that grandparents lost their house. He knew that like towns that he had seen before were kind of like truly leveled, like wiped clear from Hurricane Michael back in 2018 when it went up into the panhandle. And so I think that because of that, there's always been some like a little bit of a fear of hurricanes with him.
Hmm.
Um, so he was very nervous and anxious about the storm for sure. So our week was a whirlwind, absolutely. Like when we talked last, we were in Michigan. We flew out of Sarasota and we were set to fly back home Monday evening. And as the day progressed on Monday, we were getting ready, like we were getting ready to head to we were getting ready to head back to my parents' house to get our stuff to go to the airport. We had went and visited my mom at her school, and as we were walking around the school, I got a text saying that our flights were canceled, um, which was really frustrating. Obviously, it's going to frustrate anybody, but it was even more frustrating because I was like, why? Like
Right.
what at this point has caused these flights to be canceled? Tampa International Airport They were suspending operation Tuesday morning. Tampa St. Pete, which is another airport in the Tampa area, was suspending operation Tuesday morning, and the Sarasota airport wasn't suspending operation until Tuesday afternoon. So it wasn't like they were canceled because the airport was shutting down. And at that point in Florida, there was no bad weather. Like the bad weather arrived in Florida starting on Wednesday.
Hmm.
And so I asked them, like, I was like, what's going on? Like, why has this been canceled? And they're like, oh, because of weather. And I was like, what weather? Like, and sometimes there's weather in other parts of the country that are affecting things. But this was airlines sometimes will use the excuse of weather as a coverage for themselves in order to
Right.
be able to cancel flights. Um, Now, the airline did, and we talked about it, we flew Allegiant. They did take care of us. Like, they refunded those flights. They gave us flight vouchers, and then they gave us like these like cash vouchers as well that we were able to like directly deposit into our bank account, which was very nice of them. And that was to help offset whatever cost it was going to take to get home. Well, this was Monday afternoon into the evening. At that point, there were no other flights leaving South Bend, which is where we flew into, which is closest to my parents on Monday. Um, the only other flights that we could have taken were leaving South Bend Tuesday morning, and then we would have flown into Orlando because all of the Tampa airports were going to have shut down at that point. Francie's car was in Sarasota, so we would have somehow had to figure out who was going to pick us up in Orlando on Wednesday and then, or on Monday. No, I'm sorry, on Tuesday, and then drive us home. And that was complicated because at that point, everybody was scrambling. Like everyone was just getting ready for the hurricane. Everyone was getting ready to go. Um, and people were evacuating. Like there were thousands of people on the roads evacuating the Tampa area. People all over Central Florida evacuated for this storm, and rightly so. They were the predictions were this was going to be the worst hurricane to hit the state of Florida. I think I saw that in like over 100 years, or at least
The
like the
Tampa
Tampa Bay
area in over
area.
100 areas. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, not the state of Florida. The Tampa Bay area, which is a very heavily populated area, and it was very scary for a lot of people in the Tampa area for sure.
And
Um,
Tampa's at sea level, and it
right.
was going to be a 15-foot storm surge. So
Yeah, and if it had made landfall north of Tampa, the way the winds would have pushed that storm surge into the bay and then the bay into the city, a lot of the city would have been underwater. And there's a lot of people that live there. So it was very scary, and a lot of people were evacuating. The roads were packed, headed north, and then also headed towards Orlando. Some people evacuated to Orlando just to get further inland, and then other people went north, up into Georgia. Other people went like north and then went over towards like Mississippi and stuff. Anyways, all of this is taking place, and then we get notified that our flights had been canceled, which was extremely stressful. And I talked about this on the last episode where, I could, like, I would leave for this storm, you know, just to evacuate ourselves. Our house feels safe in it. Structurally, it's sound. I feel good about it. But if I don't have to be here for a storm, then I'm not going to be here for a storm. That being said, we had to get home. Like a lot of people were like, well, if your flight's been canceled, why don't you just stay in Michigan? Our dogs were here at the house and we had them with a house sitter, but she one, obviously she's not going to stay at our house during a hurricane and like ride out the storm with our dogs. One, two, she had to go home. And she also had another house that she had to house it for the night before the storm hit. So it was imperative that we got home. And then also my grandparents, they were supposed to evacuate to our house. They live in a mobile home in Winter Haven, and Winter Haven was supposed to get pretty bad, and they had mandatory evacuations to get out of their house in Winter Haven because it was a mobile home, which happens a lot during these major hurricanes. Like if you live in a mobile home, you will get a mandatory evacuation. So there were a lot of reasons why we needed to get back, and we were feeling very stressed. We were very nervous to try to book a flight to Orlando because we were like, what if we go to bed, wake up the next morning, go to get on that plane, and then for some reason that flight gets canceled, and then we've lost a bunch of time. And if we're going to drive it, we're losing hours, as we wait around to try to catch a plane. And so we made the decision, you know what, like let's rent a car and let's drive it. It is a like 17, 18-hour drive if you're just like driving straight
Straight.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we got on the road on Monday evening, left my parents, and just started driving. Thankfully, my brother lives in Nashville, so he's about halfway. It's a little less than halfway, but it's a good marker to be able to stop and get some rest. So we made it there early in the morning, Tuesday morning, after leaving my parents. Slept for a couple of hours and then got back on the road. It was kind of funny because my nephews didn't know that we were like coming to their house. So they woke up in the morning and they were like, where the heck did you guys come from? And then the boys all like ran around the house together, which was great because I was like, get that energy out as much as you possibly can. And then like within seeing them for less than 30 minutes, we were like, all right, we've got to get in the car and get back on the road. And I think my nephews were just like, what the heck was this all about?
These people show up for 30 minutes and then leave.
Yeah. We wake up at our house in the morning, you're here, and now all of a sudden you're leaving. But it was cool to be able to see them for a few minutes and then got back on the road and drove straight from like the Nashville area to home. No, we didn't go home because Francie's car was at the airport in Sarasota. And so we were very concerned. If we had left her car there, she probably wouldn't have her car anymore because Sarasota is about where the hurricane made landfall.
Right.
And the airport sits on the water in Sarasota. So I just pictured the storm surge essentially taking this car away. And so we we called the airport and we were like, hey, we know you're closing operation at 4 o'clock today. We are currently driving down from Michigan to get to Florida. And we wondered if there was any way that the car, there's a way to access that parking lot because it wasn't in like a parking garage. If it had been in a parking garage, I would have felt a little bit better about it. It was in like a long-term lot and it was just an open lot, like outdoors.
Yeah.
Um, and so they were like, yeah, you can totally like access that lot tonight. No big deal. And so we drove straight to Sarasota, which is about an hour and a half away from our house. Now, granted, there was no traffic for us whatsoever because we were like one of maybe five cars driving southbound on I-75, whereas, and I'm not exaggerating this, the traffic leaving Florida after we got through Atlanta, basically from like just south of Atlanta all the way down to like just north of Tampa, it was, I don't want to say it was bumper to bumper the entire way, but it was like very heavy traffic of people leaving Florida.
Yeah.
All through Georgia, which was a huge problem for a lot of people because there was no gas, and that continues to remain a little bit of a burden, although it's starting to change now finally because they've been able to get some of these gas tanks back into the state. But um, there was like no gas, and so we were very intentional about like stopping for gas on the way down, like in Georgia. We also stopped before we got into the state of Florida. In Georgia and went to a Publix because I knew that like the supplies that we were going to need would be like stocked there as opposed to like trying to go to a store the next day. And granted, this is all taking place at this point on Tuesday because we left Monday night. We've driven through the night, stopped for a few hours, and by the time we got to the airport in Sarasota, it was 10 p.m. Tuesday night. The next day, the storm was coming through.
Right.
Um, we were able to get Francie's car. We were able to get the items that we needed. We were able to gas up. We actually found a gas station leaving Sarasota that had gas, which was nice. We were able to put some gas into Francie's car as well. And then we got to the house at like 11:30 p.m. We tried returning the rental car that night, but they had a big sign on the rental car place saying like, please no returns. After hours, and this location is going to be closed until Thursday because of the storm. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we're responsible for this rental car through the hurricane, which was sort of stressful. But anyways, all of that to be said, we got home at like 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday evening, and I was so stressed because I was like, I was still watching this storm, and at that point, it was still a Category 5 hurricane. And I was like,
Yeah.
what do we do now? Like we're home, we have my dogs. My grandparents had called me that day, and my grandparents are very finicky when it comes to plans. They're very like, we have a plan, let's stick to it. And then if something like throws a wrench in that plan, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have to come up with something else now. And so when they found out that our flight had been canceled, it kind of like sent them into a spiral. And I was like, it's fine. Like, we're still going to get home. You can drive to our house Wednesday morning and you'll be fine. And they were like, we don't want to be on the roads Wednesday morning. They were nervous. They were stressed, understandably so. So they found a shelter by their house that they went to that had opened up and decided to go to that shelter. Um, we had the opportunity, a very limited opportunity to make a decision to be like, do we leave now? We were not going to get on the roads Wednesday and start driving north because one, there was like limited gasoline driving north, and our gas was only going to last us for so long. Um, Two, in general, we were just basically out of time at that point. Like by the time we got in Tuesday night, and there was no physical way that I was going to be able to like get home at 11:30 p.m. Tuesday night, pack everything that we needed to pack, get the house ready in the middle of the night, and then turn around and leave again. I had no energy to do that whatsoever. Um, so we just made the decision, okay, like let's stay. We're gonna do this. We're gonna like hunker down. We'll get everything done that we can tomorrow. The weather wasn't supposed to start getting bad until tomorrow afternoon into the evening, which is when those tornadoes warnings really started, was in the afternoon. And then we'll go from there. And we had, I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things, and I talked about this on my Instagram story, but like something that's really cool that happens, and it's unfortunate that it takes something like this to happen for it to happen, but there's like a sense of strong community that takes
Oh yeah.
place, and it's not even just people that it's just the neighborhood in general. Like people are out and about helping each other out, boarding each other's houses. Like everyone is there to lend a helping hand. And we have people that live here in Lakeland that they're like our people. They're there to help us and do whatever, just to help. And we would do the same for them. We had a friend stay at the house Monday night with the dog since we couldn't be here and the house sitter had to leave. The next day, they went and picked up Luke's albuterol refill because we needed to have that just in case,
Yeah.
we ran out and things got really ugly. Luke would need that in case of emergency. So we had all these people that were doing things for us here. We had another friend go to Lowe's and get another tank of propane for us just in case we needed that for the grill. So it just felt so cool to like have people come together and like help us out because really we were in a pretty desperate place of need at that point because we could not do all of the things that we normally would do to get ready for a hurricane while we were driving across the country. So that was awesome. That was really cool just to see like people come through for us in that regard. And I'll get to after the storm what that looked like as well. But yeah, so we Wednesday morning woke up. Thankfully, I was able to go to Lowe's. It was still open. They closed early at Lowe's that day, and grab a couple pieces of plywood. They had like the more expensive plywood only available. So I have like very nice plywood to
Oh,
board up
some
my
$50
window.
sheets of plywood.
Yeah. I think they
Nice.
were like $60. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was able to get a couple pieces of plywood. Went with a neighbor. He had like we were able to grab actually some of the screws that I needed because my house is stucco. So we were gonna have to drill in through the stucco into the cement blocking. So we needed the right like Tapcon, I think that's what they're
Yeah.
called.
Tapcons.
Yeah, we needed the right screws to be able to put up the boards. But it was just cool. Like people in the neighborhood were helping each other out. They were helping us put the boards up. At that point, it had already started pouring, so I was drenched putting these boards up around the house. Francie was kind of getting things ready inside of the house. Um, and we were able to get everything done Wednesday midday. And then it was time to everybody just like go to their homes and get ready for the storm. The actual storm for us, it did get gross. Like we lost power around 6:45 p.m., which felt very early, and it was really unfortunate because like everyone in our neighborhood, like people that were on the coast evacuated to their family and friends in our neighborhood because we hyped up that like Our power lines are underground. We're on a grid that usually gets power back pretty quickly after the storm. And like 6:45 rolled around and we were like, are you kidding me? Like what the heck? Why did this go so quickly? Um, the weather was not awful at that point, so it just felt like premature, and it was like, well, this is going to be a long night because at that point that no one was out and about like restoring people's power. Everybody was like shelter in place at
Yeah.
that point.
I got one. I
Um,
got one worse for you though.
oh what?
My parents, their power stayed on all night, all through the worst of it, and then 5 a.m. when the storm started letting up, their power went out.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. Why?
I don't know.
It's so frustrating. But yeah, so it went out kind of early. We had just like before the power went out, I was like, hey, it's probably a good idea for like us to cook dinner just in case the power does go out. So we were like, we were trying to cook things that like would need to be cooked inside of the fridge or freezer. Obviously, like the fridge is the priority at that point because if the power's out for a long period of time, those groceries go bad faster than the freezer stuff does. Um, but a couple of tips for you if you ever have to face something like this. We took big water gallons and put them in our freezer earlier that day so that they'd freeze. And then we moved a couple of those over to the fridge when the power did go out. And then that helps preserve things
Yeah.
as long as possible. You want to like make
Turns
a
it into
cool,
an ice box.
yeah, you want to make a cooler out of it. But anyway, we had just got done cooking pasta and meatballs, and the power went out, and Francie was like, "Do you want to try the meatballs?" And I was like, "Oh man, I really hope these things are not frozen still." But they were great. They were hot. We had a hot meal. It was delicious. And we had to keep the spirits up because that's one of the things too in one of these storms. Like when you have young kids, if you start to panic or get stressed out or start spiraling, which it's easy to do, don't get me wrong, your kids are going to feel that, and then it's not going to be good for anybody. We were singing along, we had candles going, we were just like trying to keep the mood as light and positive as possible. And so that went really well. But yeah, so anyways, the power goes out, and then the boys were playing on their tablets. We had charged up their tablets, so they were having a great time. And then at around 8:30 or 9, I was like, okay, it's time to turn the tablets off, and you guys need to go to sleep. We all slept downstairs in the living room, and we had done like an air mattress in the living room for the boys. And so Ethan was like, and that was just to be safe. Like we knew that the weather was going to get pretty gross here, and we didn't want like to be upstairs for it. And so Ethan went to sleep immediately. And that's what Ethan does. Like Ethan doesn't take much. He's like, all right, see ya. And he went to bed. Luke was up a lot of the night, but after they went to bed is when it started to like kind of go downhill. And then around 1 o'clock in the morning, it was gross.
Yeah.
We had so much rain. Like there was flooding in our neighborhood. People had water that came into their houses. Our neighborhood also the structure, our neighborhood's sort of built, and this is par for the course in the state of Florida, but it's very swampy around our neighborhood. And a lot of people had water coming up through the foundation of their homes. So it was
Mm.
like coming up through the concrete and then also coming in through the baseboards of the walls that like were like the outdoor facing walls. So people did deal with I don't even know if you can call that flooding, I guess, but I guess you could. It wasn't like what you see on,
Insurance would call it flooding.
right. And it wasn't what you see on TV where like, you notice like a foot of water in people's homes or anything like that. But also it sucks because their carpet is ruined or their
Yeah.
flooring is ruined and they have to like deal with that and figure out how to handle that situation. And then the wind was it was I posted a video in and I don't even think it did it justice onto my story, but it was just this howl that lasted and this like whistling that lasted just for like probably 4 or 5 hours, just nonstop howling outside. And thankfully the boys were mostly asleep for all of that, but because we didn't have power, we didn't have a way of like drowning out that noise, and it was
Yeah,
very
it's just like
dark.
deathly quiet in there.
Exactly. And so Francie and I we were up for most of it, just listening to it. And honestly, like we had plywood up in front of the windows, and then we had plywood up in front of we have a sliding glass door in the back of our house. And so the plywood didn't cover the entire door, so I was like sitting on the floor looking under the plywood just to like watch what was happening in the backyard. Um, and our fence, I was like, this thing's gonna go. Like, there's no way that this thing holds on. Thankfully, the one side of our fence did make it. The other side, some panels blew out, but um, it was just intense. It was definitely an intense experience for sure. By the time that it was over us, it was a category two hurricane. From what I learned all of this stuff later too, because when the power went out, like you want to kind of go into like battery conservation mode. So you don't want to be on your phone trying to like pull up the internet and like look at radar and stuff like that. Although it's helpful to have that information. Thankfully, like you were texting me, my mom was sending me screenshots of like what radar looked like, but we didn't really know where the storm was. Like the storm made landfall around 8:30 p.m. And that's when things started to deteriorate for us for sure after it made landfall because then it was getting closer to us. But yeah, right in the middle of the night is when the eye wall was closest and it was pretty gross. Um and um and another thing that happened is that our cell service like got really, really terrible. So I'm sure that there was some damage to
Just
like
the internet in general just got bad.
yeah, yeah. We had a radio that's like solar charged and we could only get a few stations on it and there was one station that was giving weather updates. The other one was like just a Latin music station, which was really fun because we were all like dancing around the house to that at one point. um but anyways, after the worst of it went through, we were finally able to like doze off for a couple of hours and get some sleep. And then it was like you wake up before the sun the next morning and you're just like, all right, like what is the sun gonna bring us? Like what are things gonna look like? And I mean, it was bad. There was a lot of flooding around us. Our road to get into our neighborhood was completely flooded. Like we were not gonna drive our car through it because the water was so intense. Um,
You don't want to.
No, no, no. Some people were doing it, and some people had really tall trucks, so they were a little more okay, but there was no chance we were going to. And then like a lot of down trees. Thankfully, our area is in like a newer development, so there's not massive old oak trees here, but around the city of Lakeland, there are a ton of old oak trees that are either toppled over or their limbs like are all over the place. We know people who had oak trees fall onto their homes, fall onto their
Oof.
cars. Um, the cell service was like terrible. You could barely like send or receive text messages for a while. And then um our yeah, like I said, our couple panels of our fence blew out. It was very easy fix. I already fixed it. The like vinyl fencing, super easy to fix. It all just like snaps back together,
Yeah,
which
as long
that
as you can find all the pieces.
yeah, that was a win. Um, and then we did lose several shingles on the top of our house, which honestly, like considering what other homes in our neighborhood like went through with the amount of shingles that they lost, some people had roof leaks. One of my neighbors told me that they felt their roof shaking, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
Um,
I could hear. I went into my closet to like get changed for the night, and I like stopped for a second and listened, and I could hear like my roof was like,
yeah, yeah.
and I was like,
We couldn't hear any of that because we were on the first floor. So like the roof was, I couldn't hear what was happening with that. But um, all in all, like we fared so well compared to what other people obviously are experiencing. People lost their entire homes and like my heart breaks for them, absolutely. But it still was like, this sucks, like our power was out for 19 hours, so it finally came back the next day. But that was long enough to have to like clean out the fridge and like throw a ton of stuff away. And then I went the next day to try to like go replace some of the things that we would need. And like this grocery stores here, half of them were closed, and then those that were open, they weren't getting new trucks of food in, so there was like limited things to be able to buy.
by the way,
Um,
we went to the store yesterday, still not. Like the
right.
grocery stores are still empty.
Yeah, it's going to take a while for them to be able to like get out and about and like restock things for sure.
The strangest thing was the grocery store, the things that I didn't think were gonna go, like fresh fruit, that
Yeah,
was all gone. And I thought about it, I
potatoes.
was like, yeah, I got apples because I was like, these aren't
Yeah,
gonna go bad for a while.
we came back with apples because we went apple picking in Michigan, so we did come back with apples, which was nice.
There you go.
Um, but yeah, it's It's exhausting. Like the whole storm in general is exhausting, and then after the storm, it's exhausting. Like you're just drained, and then even driving around Lakeland, like today we went to, we had friends that they got their power back this morning, so they were without it for like 3 or 4 days.
Dang.
Um, and we're so happy that they got it back because it's their little girl's birthday, and she was supposed to have a birthday party today, and they're very like on the fence about continuing with this birthday party considering what everybody had gone through, but they were like, no, we're gonna do this birthday party, like let's have it. It was supposed to be at a skating rink here in Lakeland. And thankfully the skating rink did not have any damage and it had power, so they were able to have the birthday party. And it was kind of nice. It was nice to like escape the hurricane stuff for a little while and just kind of like hang out with friends and celebrate. But yeah, people are still like one of Francie's coworkers, they were canoeing in their front yard yesterday. The
Jeez.
the flooding is pretty bad. And a lot of schools aren't going back to school yet, just because like they're not ready for it. But again, we fared well. We're good. Everybody's good. Like it could have been so much worse for us here in Lakeland. It's sad driving around Lakeland and seeing like the amount of trees that went down, the amount of damage that's been done. It drains you mentally after a while. It's just like, ugh, like this sucks. Like and like thinking about Tampa, I have family in Tampa that they fared well, but just thinking about the damage that was done over there and the flooding, like one of the girls that worked at the skating rink today, I was talking to her and she lives in Plant City, which is a town that's like just further um west of Lakeland, so closer to where the I made landfall. And she's like, "Yeah, I have about a foot of water in my house," and I'm just like, "Dang, man, like this is awful." The amount I have never seen it rain that much before in my life. We got
Yeah.
so much rain, and it was heavy rain. So we're good. My heart breaks for so many people in the state of Florida. Like for them to have to go through what they went through on the coast with Helene and then just get like a double whammy with this storm, it's absolutely tragic. And we what we do is we find ways to help as we can. We did this with one of our episodes, but we said like a portion of the proceeds of that episode is going to go to those. We'll just continue to do that, I feel like, with this episode as well,
Yeah.
like continuing to help people, especially those on the coast that are continuing to really go through it. There's a lot of people in the state of Florida that still don't have power. And that's obviously an inconvenience, like not necessarily something that's like, we can live without power for sure. But it sucks, like
Yeah.
it's a convenience that we very much appreciate,
Well, especially with it getting hotter and hotter and hotter. We're
yeah,
lucky because the weather's been pretty great these past few days,
yeah,
but still, like,
yeah.
it's not cool.
No, 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 no. And
It's
there's still
like,
humidity because it's Florida and that'll exist for a long time. It really never fully goes away.
yeah, like
Um,
today the high was 85, which is
yeah,
like not 100.
right, right.
It's still hot.
But still very warm. Yeah, and it just gets old. Like sitting in a house with no power, we did it for almost 24 hours, and it's not fun.
Yeah.
Like it was interesting to see the boys like have to figure out what has power and what doesn't, and they're just like, we can't do this, and like all these things. Like Luke went to go to try to get water out of the refrigerator, out of like the dispenser, and he was like, why is this not working? And I was like, buddy, like the fridge is
Yeah.
off. It will not work. Thankfully, like we had bottles of water, but also like our water doesn't go out when we don't have electricity, so we still could use water. But another thing that you don't want to do sometimes is use water because sometimes the water is not getting treated properly because there could have been flooding at one of like the treatment facilities or the water main could have broke somewhere. Um, we didn't
That's still
experience,
happening in Orlando right now as we're on a water restriction.
yeah, yeah, it's happening really badly in St. Pete. They had like sewage issues and all kinds of stuff in St. Petersburg. So anyways, all of that to say, um, we're glad that the storm has passed us, and it's not going to be something that we're going to like continue to talk about, obviously, on these episodes, but it's real and it happened to us, and it was a whirlwind of a week. We have been so physically exhausted the last couple of days. Just driving across the country was exhausting, and then to drive across the country and then immediately go into like boarding up your house and like prepping for a
Yeah.
storm, and then to finish that and like sit in your home. Literally, like I took a shower and then sat down and tornado warnings started popping up. And so it was like to go from that to then weathering the storm and then the day after the storm, walking around the neighborhood, helping people take their plywood down, helping people clean up their yards. Like, but that was one of the cool things that happens is like our whole neighborhood was out and about, like talking to each other, helping each other, comparing what, each other's homes were like. And that was a light in the middle of like a dark place, to be able to like see neighbors and talk to neighbors and connect with them and just everybody kind of coming together was really really special. Um, but it's been like that, and then we've been very intentional about helping people that like don't have power. So like our friends that have had not had power for days, we've like had them over for dinner, cooked them a meal, like said please take showers, use internet if you need it, that kind of stuff. But it's been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind of a week for sure, and I'm ready to put it past me and just kind of like regroup. I told Francie, I was
I'm
like,
ready for hurricane season to be done.
me too. It's funny, I saw this online, but someone posted a TikTok and they were like, we're done with all that is like October now, like because hurricane season technically ends, I think, November 1st in
I
the
don't
state of
know.
Florida.
I can look up. You
I
keep
th
telling your
I
story and I'll
think it's
look.
in November, but anyways, they were just kind of like they even went as far as to say like we're done with like spooky season, like we don't care about Halloween, like give us the holidays, like we're done with all of this.
November 30th.
Oh, okay, so we have the entire month of November to get through as well.
Yeah.
But I did read that there's cooling happening now because of these like quote unquote cold fronts that we've gotten, cooling happening in the Gulf of Mexico. And
Oh,
anytime that
that's
like
good.
the water starts to get even slightly cooler, that's a big good news for us Floridians because it means that the storms won't have what they need to become category 5 hurricanes. Like
Or
they
anything,
right.
you
They
know?
rely on the heat from the water to intensify.
And
Um,
that's why Milton went from a category 5 down to a category 3 before it made landfall, was because the water was cooler closer to shore, and there was also a front pushing down,
yeah.
causing it to have wind shear.
It was wild to see how the wind shear really affected it because for a long time there was this like very defined eye, and that's when you know that a hurricane is very strong when it has a very like defined eye on radar. And as soon as it started to get close to the state of Florida, that eye just collapsed. And that was like a win for everybody in Florida for
Yeah,
sure.
there was one point that I think the eye was 3 miles across, and the smallest recorded eye on record was 12 miles.
Wow.
So I think it was like supposed to be, when people were like, this would be a category 6 if there was a category 6.
Yeah.
Um, because
Scary.
it's like one of the, when it was out there, it was, the one meteorologist has said it was approaching the limit of what can be created in the Earth's atmosphere.
It's so wild. I know that like the pressure broke records for like how low the pressure dropped for the
Yeah.
storm. Thank goodness that that is not what came over the state of Florida because I mean, as devastating as it is what has happened with the category 3 storm hitting, there's no telling what things could have been like. So
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say thank God like that's not what happened.
Yeah, they said that the pressure was so low that you had to, people were going to get altitude sickness
Yeah, I believe
from
that.
the storm.
I felt the pressure change once the storm got closer, but my body feels that whenever like thunderstorm rolls through,
Mm,
sometimes my sinuses will
your
hurt.
lumbago.
Storm's coming, Annie. But anyway, so we will transition out of hurricane talk, but that is what our week has looked like. So obviously there was like no theme park experience happening. I did see like really sweet videos of like people who were already at Disney and the cast members like doing all kinds of fun activities with them in the lobbies. I've got to say, I mean, obviously cast members are a very special type of people, and we know that, and we always know that. But like watching what they did and they've done during this storm, it's so cool. Like I love the magic that they continue to create in the moments that they create. And honestly, like it'd be very hard to have a very happy, optimistic spirit in the middle of that.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I was frustrated for cast members. Disney did not announce closures until I think it was like Tuesday afternoon about when
it
they were gonna
was.
be closing the next day.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
But
and
also, most people don't realize that those people that were there, the cast members, they're a ride out. Like they are staying at
right,
Disney. They're not at their
right.
house. They don't go home at the end of the day.
Right, right. But for those that were not going to do ride out, and I think they volunteer for ride out as well.
Yeah.
But for those that were not going to do ride out, they had to wait until Tuesday afternoon to find out whether they were going to have to show up at work and what time they were going to have to show up at work the next day. I mean, I get it. It makes sense. Like I understand why companies do these things, but I was frustrated for them. I had friends that were like, we want to leave, but we can't leave. And I know that like that's part of like working in these industries where like they're going to be open, 365 days a year. But I do feel like decisions could have been made a little more in advance for sure to give people a little bit more of an opportunity to make a plan.
Yeah.
Um,
Shout out to, I think SeaWorld was like Monday. They're like, yeah, we're going to be closed on Wednesday.
yeah, that gives those employees plenty of time to like put their plan in place and then to know when they need to be back. Because it's not like, oh, congratulations, you get a week off. Like that's not ever going to be the case with these places. Like theme parks are going to operate because they're going to collect their dollars and people have already booked trips and planned visits, thousands of people for sure. But um yeah, I was a little frustrated seeing how long it was taking for some of that to get announced for sure. And I know that I was frustrated because I had friends that were like, we need to make decisions, So, um, but overall, everybody fared well. It seems like the parks did okay. I didn't see any like major damage or anything.
There's a Polynesian had a roof
Oh,
peel back,
really?
I think.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
And then a lot of trees down. There's a tree down in the hub.
I saw
Uh,
that.
there's a tree downs at Typhoon Lagoon had some trees down.
Hmm.
They were late to open too.
Okay.
Typhoon Lagoon
I
opened later than the parks did.
When that stuff was getting reported, I didn't have power and very limited
Yeah.
service, so I was like out of the loop on a lot of the things that were happening. But I don't know about Busch Gardens. I haven't seen much about it, but I imagine like
They opened late too. I think they
yeah,
opened today or yesterday.
yeah, they had a delayed one for sure, which makes
Yeah.
sense. They were
Yeah.
closer to where the eye came ashore. They were closer to all of that. Tampa got hit pretty hard. It could have been a lot worse for the city of Tampa for sure, but they still got it pretty bad. So I will be back at the parks soon. I have got to go back for work. So there's going to be a lot of like catching up for work that I have this week. But then just our family in general. One thing that I really want to do is take advantage of what's left of spooky season. So like I want to
Yeah.
do like fun activities. I want to like get into that mode because like in a couple weeks it's going to be over, which is wild. It's crazy that like time is flying by the way that it is.
Yeah. These
Um,
hurricanes really like slowed everything down in the middle of the month here,
Yeah, I feel like
or
I
the beginning of the
lost a
month.
whole week this past week. Like I feel like,
Yeah.
this week was spent solely dedicated to hurricane stuff. So it's time to like get back to it before it all goes away. Um, I don't even think Francie and the boys have been to Magic Kingdom since the pumpkins have been out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it
um,
also is hard too because um like school's been out too. School was out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for us. So 3 days
yeah,
and and then Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day, so it's still out on Monday.
yeah.
So
They have school tomorrow. They go back to school tomorrow, but they were out for fall break, so they were not in school last Thursday and Friday, and then school was closed all last week for the hurricane. So they've been out for like a week and a half.
oh, what is this
Yeah,
fall break?
it's a lot of schools get it. A lot of and it's the thing that exists mostly up north, I think, but
Hmm.
it's like a few days like in the fall that they get like extra, just like a
I
break for
thought
the
that was
kids and the
Thanksgiving.
teachers. They get a full week off for Thanksgiving as well.
Hmm.
But um but yeah, so it's going to be Monday. Tomorrow morning is going to hit hard for our family because it's going to be back to school, back to work, all of the things. Uh, it is going to be interesting because, like, a lot of people, I don't know, I imagine there's a lot of kids that still don't have power. And so sending them back to
Yeah.
school feels lame,
I don't know.
like,
I feel like if I were without power, I'd be like, yeah,
yeah,
let me get into that school, get some air
go to the
conditioning.
air conditioning. Yeah. But just
Right?
like not being able to, like, I feel like when you don't have power, when you take a shower, you don't
Oh, it's
fully
so
feel
cold.
clean. Ugh. Yeah, it's freezing, and then you get out and you're sweating,
Yeah.
like so. That's
That
always
was why when
unfortunate.
I had them put the battery in, they're like, what do you want it to power when the power goes out?" I was like, "Hot water heater." Like, I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, please
Even
give
if
us
I
our
don't
hot
have
water.
power or if I don't have air conditioning,
Yeah,
give me that
I
hot
want
water
hot
heater.
water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so it'll be an interesting week, but I'm ready to get back to the parks too. Like it's taken away from my time at the theme parks. And obviously that's something that brings me joy, but it wasn't high up on our priority list to go to once the storm had gone through because
Yeah.
things were wild. I do know people that went to the parks after the storm had come through that didn't have power, and it was like an escape for them. And that's awesome. Like I think that that's great that they have like the ability. Why stay in your home with no AC, no power, not being able to get to food? Why not go to a place like Disney that is open, get a hot meal, and, just like escape the reality that home is for a little while. So,
Yeah. I will say this, something that happened this week that I almost forgot about was we went to Disney Springs and we ate at Eat,
oh yeah,
which I feel like because it's way over there in the marketplace, like it's over by the Christmas store, over there where Wolfgang Puck's used to be, by Earl of Sandwich.
yeah,
It is like close to where Saratoga Springs gets. Actually, Saratoga Springs, if you're coming from Saratoga Springs, you enter Disney Springs right there.
yeah.
Um, that is easily top three restaurants for me.
It is so good. The food is so fresh and tasty. I love it so much. I
Yeah,
wish that they had a better location. Like I feel like
yeah.
because they're tucked away in the corner, not a lot of people are familiar with it. Um, but yeah, I love that place. I'm so glad that you guys were able to go too. Was that your first time eating there?
No, no, we've eaten there. I
Yeah.
think this was like maybe our third time or second time.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
and it
underrated
was
for sure.
they invited us out and then like they're like order what you want. So we like each ordered one thing and then they like brought out so much more and we're like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, we had a lot of food when I got to go. They invited me to go out there as well through the theme park dad. And yeah, it was a lot of food for sure. But um yeah, I'm glad you're able to go there for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be back. I'm ready to be back at Disney. It feels like it's been too long and I need it in my life for sure.
You know what we did yesterday?
Hmm.
Gatorland.
Oh, nice. I've never been.
Oh man, you got to go.
Yeah, Luke
It's
would love it.
fun.
Yeah.
It's so much fun because like we talk about this anytime we make a video there. We're like, if you're looking to see what Florida is,
Yeah.
go to Gatorland.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
Those
depiction.
stories that you've heard on the news about Florida man, don't pay attention to those. The
Just
real
go to
Florida man is at Gatorland. Like it is quintessential Florida and it's so nice. Like
I want to go.
it's especially Halloween, they have this ghost Gators, Ghosts and Goblins and it's their Halloween event. They've got like a it's a museum for the first half and then things go awry and there's like an exit if you don't want to go through the rest of it, but if you'd like to go through the rest of it, you can. This would be a great event for you, Nick, because there's the first half is all informational.
Yeah.
It is literally a museum and I'm thriving where they're
Yeah,
telling
that's
us
right up
information
your alley.
about what's like uh but it's all like spooky facts.
Yeah.
So like one of the things that they had in there that was really neat, like in a room they explained uh all of the terms that you come up with for like the funeral, like when it's happening, like a wake. Why is it called a
Okay.
wake?
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there watching to see if the person wakes up,
That's so wild.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And like in that room, they talk about ways that the people used to remember those that had died when they died, like with like death portraits and stuff, where you like prop up the body with your
Oh
family
yeah.
and then you have like one last picture with them.
Ugh.
But then they also showed this thing, and they actually had one there. It was a hair wreath. So, like, after the person dies, you can take their hair and you send it off to somebody, and they make this flower bouquet wreath
No,
entirely out of hair.
I don't want
Like, there's
that.
no flowers. The flowers are made of hair. And then they
Oh,
frame it up and they put it in like this nice glass enclosure. And
I
they
don't want
had one
that.
of them there, and like the lights are all flickering. They shine a flashlight on it for a second. I was like, whoa, wait, 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 let me see this thing a little bit closer. And
No,
like
I
he
don't
came
want
over and he
that.
like showed us the hair and you could see the flower was like made of hair.
Ugh.
It
I
was
don't
awesome.
I don't think I want that.
Yeah. And then they like, they go through the different things and it all has a storyline of the Gatorland has a vlog team and
That's
everybody in
awesome.
the vlog team had quote unquote died.
Oh,
So they like went through the different ways that
Each one
they
had
were,
passed.
you know, uh, like they went through Dead Ringer where they had to put like a bell over top of the gravestone, and like one of the guys from the vlog team was there, like not actually the person, but like a mannequin. And
Yeah.
then they went to like embalming, and then the other one was there, and then they started going into the different kinds of ghosts, and they had like these projection effects and everything where like the ghost came in.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
really cool. And
That's
then they got into
fascinating.
the scary stuff.
Yeah. And that's where I'll skip.
Yeah. But like I think you'd really like it. Maybe not
That's
like
cool.
it, but
I
you'd
want,
be interested in it.
oh, I think so. And I want to go to Gatorland just in general,
Yeah.
for
Well, they
sure.
also had like cryptids there. They had a cryptid petting zoo where you could meet like the Jersey Devil. They
Uh,
had a Yeti there. They had a our skunk ape here. We have a skunk. There's skunk ape's always there. He like lives at Gatorland.
I think I watched a
So
TikTok that you posted from there.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was the skunk ape.
Okay.
He's my guy. He's
I
when
love it.
I hiked the Appalachian Trail. I hiked for we did 2 weeks on the Appalachian Trail. It wasn't the full thing, but when you go on the trail, you get a trail name, and mine was Skunk Ape.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
No, I want to. I want to go visit soon. We're gonna try to rebook our trip out to Legoland as well before Brick or Treat ends, which is soon.
yeah.
And then we're gonna try to get over to Busch Gardens and do some of their Halloween activities as well. But um, yeah, it's been a pivot. So
Yeah.
happy to
We
happy
didn't
to
get to
be back
stay
to it.
at Gatorland for as long as I wanted to because then we had to go to a birthday party, which is still it was a fun time.
Yeah,
But
but
like,
not Gatorland.
yeah, we packed this weekend full of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
I was
we originally did, and then everything flipped upside down. So
yeah. Well, that's why I can throw my high dad soup moment in there for today
yeah,
because Jackson has a best friend, and that best friend moved up a grade,
okay.
and so they don't get to see each other very often. So we invited them over today, and it was just pure chaos all day long. Like they were running around doing all kinds of stuff. They Jen had this idea to do a car wash where you take all the Hot Wheels and you set up mud with it's not actual mud, it's like cocoa powder
Yeah,
and water and flour, I think. So that like just in case if they get wild and gets in their mouth or something, they're not like eating dirt,
right.
you know?
Yeah,
And
draining
so they're
chocolate.
like they like run the Hot Wheels through the mud and then they put them in like they have like brushes and stuff in soapy water that they can like clean the mud off of it.
You sent
And
me a
then they
picture of like some of the aftermath of this. It
just
looks
like
like a murder
handprints
scene.
everywhere. And they like just started the like were picking up the mud and just like the mud and uh putting it all over the place. It was like on the screen enclosure, it was on our couch out there, it was all over the floor.
I love
And
it.
I'm just like and then they like got themselves cleaned up in the pool.
Oh,
And then we
nice.
painted pumpkins.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we bought these like little they're called like Little Boo or something. They're not Little
Okay.
Boo, that's from Universal, but they're called Little Bee pumpkins or something like
Oh,
that. And they're like about the size of a softball.
yeah.
And then they just had paint and they were painting all over them. They got paint all over themselves. And then
That's so
once
fun though. That's like such good memories for
shout
Jackson.
out to Crayola though, because what had happened was they were like they did the mud stuff, then they got in the pool to like clean off the mud stuff.
Uh-huh.
Then they painted and Jackson was wearing his Lighthouse Point like spirit jersey, whatever those things were, rash guard
Yeah.
thing. And he got paint all over it. And I like threw it in the washing machine. Like shout out Crayola. You guys did
Nice.
great. Came
Came right
right
out.
out.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I see that's the kind of stuff that I want to do. I'm ready to like get our pumpkin. Like we need to get our family pumpkin. We haven't done that
Yeah.
yet.
Still a
Um,
little early because pumpkins go
yeah.
real fast in Florida. As
Yeah, we
far as
don't
like once you cut them into a jack-o'-lantern,
yeah.
then they
We don't
melt.
carve them until like the day before Halloween because they do.
Yeah.
They're gross. But I want to go get like the actual pumpkin and like I can't I will say we got to do a lot of fun fall things up in Michigan. We went apple picking. We got to do like fun fall stuff like that. But anyways, I'm glad that Jackson had such a wonderful day. Like that sounds like such a blast, and I'm glad that we
Yeah.
get to like make those memories for sure. Um, I mean, I had plenty of high dad soup moments. My kids were rock stars this week. Like they just went with the flow. They did so well driving across the country. They slept for part of it, but for the most part, like they were awake and they were just fine. Like there was not a lot of complaining going on. Ethan got a little car sick and I don't think he had the words to like describe what was actually happening to him there. And he's just started to get pretty, I think, kind of anxious being in the car for so long. He doesn't always fully understand like what's going on. Like his processing is very different for sure. And so like we explained to them what was happening, but I don't think like it was all like fully connecting for him.
Yeah,
Which was not a bad thing because ignorance is bliss sometimes, but he was just
that's
kind of
Oliver.
like, yeah, yeah. But he was just kind of like, we got a new car, and we're like, well, this isn't actually our car. This is a rental car. We're gonna have to take this one back. But then like he was just like, why are we still in the car? Like
It's like,
what are we
where are we
doing?
going?
We flew up there. Why are we driving back?
Yeah. I
And
also wonder, like in kids' minds, how does that work? Because like if I'm with Jackson and we fly to California, he doesn't know that we flew
right,
whatever thousands of miles it
right, right,
is.
right.
He's
I
just
don't
like,
know. They're
oh,
just
I
kind of
bet
like
you we're just like right next to
along for the
Florida.
ride. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't. Luke is at an age where he understands it. Like Luke is doing geography at school now, so he can like
yeah.
look at a map and say, "Wow, we flew a long distance," and he knew like, "Oh man, we're gonna be in the car for a long time." Like, so he was prepared for that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what was going through his head, Ethan's head, um, but anyway, so they just have been rock stars through that, rock stars through getting ready for the hurricane through the entire experience. They were amazing. Even like their attitudes were so good after the storm was over with not having power. And honestly, like I think that Francie and I set the tone for that a lot because like if we're miserable, they're going to be miserable, but they look to us for like, okay, how are we doing? So it's
Yeah.
like you kind of just have to take it for what it is. But yeah, I'm so proud of them. They did so good. And it was honestly nice to get a lot of family time together this week. It wasn't the best circumstances by any means, but we made a lot of memories together for sure. That we'll talk about later. Like, remember when we danced around the house to Latin music with no power and candlelight, as trees were breaking outside. So, but but yeah, that would I would consider that to be my high dad suit moment.
Now,
Also, what?
go ahead.
Did you know that at Toontown in Disneyland, there's literally a can of like high dad soup?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. Someone posted that on
Where
their
is it?
Instagram story in Toontown somewhere. I don't know exactly where in Toontown, but I'm
Hmm.
like, what the heck? We need a picture in front of that
Goofy's
thing.
house or something? Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Anyways,
Do you know what has been bothering me
what?
this entire podcast?
The fact that I've been relying on natural lighting and now the sun's going down, so
No,
it's like
no, no,
getting
no. It's
darker.
not. It's nothing to do
Oh.
with your video quality. You're doing fantastic. You look great.
What?
You didn't tell us what kind of car you got rented.
That's right. You can't even hear anything else I'm saying. You're like, but what
Yeah,
car was
I
it?
have not heard a single word you've said because you didn't tell me what kind of car it was.
Naturally.
I'm like,
It was a Chrysler, it was a minivan. Voyager,
ooh, Town and
maybe?
Country.
No. I think it was
Was it?
called, I
Is
don't
that a
remember.
Dodge? Dodge Voyager?
Oh, maybe. It was a Chrysler for sure, and it was a minivan. And it was so great. Minivans are awesome. Like, they really have so much space, and I question why
Yeah,
we don't have a minivan. Like,
yeah.
other
I
than
would
like,
buy an electric minivan in a heartbeat
yeah, yeah,
if they made one. And I know like Volkswagen is coming out with this one,
yeah,
but like I need to get in it and see it. But
yeah,
like,
yeah.
sounds pretty good.
I understand like optically they're not like the most appealing things in the world for sure, but like they're so functional and gas, they do great on gas. Like
Yeah,
obviously, like if you're getting an electric vehicle, you don't have to worry about it. But for our purposes, driving a gas vehicle across the country, it did okay. Like I there was and then like we loaded up on supplies. So like loading up our car in Georgia, we had so much space, and the boys never felt like it was intruding on their space. And actually, because we had the rental car, I used it because it was the most spacious car that we had to transfer the plywood when we were picking it up
yeah.
from Lowe's, and putting it up at the house. So big
Very
win.
versatile.
Yeah.
Some of them even have built-in vacuums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Ours did not, but it was still very spacious.
The
And I
Chrysler
bonded with it.
Pacifica.
Maybe that's
You
what
say
it
it was a
is.
Chrysler
Yeah.
Pacifica.
Okay. That might be it.
They make a hybrid one of that, like a plug-in hybrid with the Pacifica.
I did feel like it was cool because the tag, it's a rental car, so you never know what state you're going to get on the tag, but it was a Florida tag. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
let's go home. You know,
Yeah.
like we brought it back home. I'm very grateful we were able to get Francie's car as well because I don't think her car would have made it. So
Yeah, that was a good call.
yeah, super glad that we went there first. Um, well,
Yeah.
that's all that I have.
And that's all she wrote. Hopefully that'll be the last that we're talking about hurricanes.
I hope so too. And we will get back to regular like Tim and Nick together. It's not going to be next week. There's fun plans on the horizon next week. So I'll probably have and I mean fun plans for Tim. I'll probably have I'll probably have a special guest with me next week. So stay tuned for that one. Um,
Santa Claus.
he's busy. He's getting
Hmm?
close.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, oh man, you posted a TikTok that all of them
Oh, the Christmas merch?
yes,
Yeah.
I'm
By
telling
the way,
you,
I didn't realize that lounge flies, like, people are just like out here buying $100 lounge flies.
yeah.
Jeez Louise. Like, man.
I need the holidays so badly in my life right now. I really do think as much as I want to do some like spooky fun, I'm kind of done with Halloween. Like I am ready for the holidays. Like I November 1st, come at me, bro. You know,
Yeah.
like
Well, I think that it's like the hope that it's going to get cooler too. Is it
and
still
just
hot?
like and everything. Like spooky season has just been weird the last couple weeks because it's been hurricane season, a different kind of spooky. And I'm
Yeah.
like ready for like I think that like the holidays bring a
You're
lot of
ready for
things.
some lighter imagery.
Yeah. They bring a lot of things for a lot of different people. And I understand that it's a very stressful time for people, but like I'm ready for like the joy that I have listening to holiday music and putting up holiday decorations. And I just love Christmas so much. It's my favorite holiday. So I'm ready
Yeah.
for it. But I have a lot of running coming up in my near
Oh,
future.
I forgot about all that.
I
Oh
haven't,
my
and I've been
gosh.
terrible at training, which is not good. I haven't had
Our
the time to
friend,
run.
our friend sent me pictures from his run this morning.
Yes,
He
me
has like
too.
run around like trees that fell
Yeah.
down and like block walls that were falling over.
But he's
He's like, I
doing
have a
it.
lot of
Kudos to
obstacles.
him. I haven't
Yeah.
even been able to like do it. So
Yeah.
I have a half marathon coming up in a couple weeks for Wine and Dine, and I am unprepared. My friend is running the Chicago Marathon, I think right now.
Oh,
And
geez.
they didn't do a lot of training either. So, um, but yeah, so fun things on the horizon for sure that I'll be able to talk about, including running Disney. But what was the other thing that I was going to say? It just escaped my mind.
Hmm. Was it
I don't remember.
about have a great night?
I do need to go because I
I
did
know.
not turn lights on and it is absolutely getting darker in here from when we
Which it has
started.
been getting dark earlier and
Yeah,
staying dark later.
sign of the times.
Hmm.
The seasons
Christmas
are
times.
changing. Yeah. Um, but thank you all so much for tracking with us. Stay tuned. Like I said, next week will be a fun one. We'll have a special guest. Unsure who yet, but someone will be here.
I'll
And
send a
then,
little clip in that you guys can play.
yeah, from your adventure. That'd be fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd like that. The people would love that. So, but thank you guys. I also wanted to say a special thank you to everybody. Like, I had people from all over the place messaging me during the storm, just checking in on us. And I haven't been able to get to everyone's messages, but it means the world to me. Like, just the support that we felt was very nice. So thank you guys so much. But yeah, thanks for tracking with us, and we will see you real soon.
Yeah, bye.